Karen Mitchell walked into Judge Judy's courtroom on that Tuesday morning, thinking she was about to educate America about natural healing and expose the pharmaceutical conspiracy on live television. She had her essential oil samples carefully arranged in her purse, her MLM talking points memorized down to the last health claim, and that signature condescending smile that said she knew something the rest of the world was too brainwashed to understand. Karen genuinely believed she was walking into her moment of triumph, the day she would convert Judge Judy herself to the power of natural wellness and prove that her lavender oil empire was legitimate medicine. But what Karen Mitchell didn't know was that hidden in Judge Judy's case files was a medical report that would destroy everything Karen believed about herself and her miracle oils. She didn't know that Judge Judy had been dealing with pseudoscience peddlers and snake oil salespeople for 25 years, building up a legendary intolerance for people who put profits over people's health. And she definitely didn't know that Judge Judy had zero patience for someone who thought peppermint oil could cure her famous courtroom temper and that eucalyptus could somehow make her forget 25 years of legal experience. The case that brought Karen to Judge Judy's courtroom wasn't just about money. It was about a 67-year-old grandmother named Helen Rodriguez who trusted Karen's medical advice and ended up in the emergency room with chemical burns on her skin and a severe allergic reaction that nearly killed her. But Karen had convinced herself that she was the victim here, that she was being persecuted for offering natural alternatives to Big Pharma's poison. She walked into that courtroom carrying a briefcase full of oil samples, planning to demonstrate their healing properties right there on television, completely oblivious to the fact that she was about to face someone who had seen every scam, every con, and every delusional defendant who ever thought they could outsmart the system. Karen Mitchell was about to learn that confidence without competence is just stupidity with a smile, and that Judge Judy's courtroom isn't the place for MLM presentations or essential oil interventions. If you want to see how one MLM pitch can destroy your court case and get you physically removed in under a minute, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe because this meltdown gets absolutely unhinged. What happened in those 36 seconds would become the most viral Judge Judy clip of all time, expose the dark side of essential oil culture, and turn Karen Mitchell into the internet's favorite cautionary tale about what happens when keeping it natural goes terribly wrong. If you want to see how badly this essential oils pitch backfired, and why Judge Judy's reaction broke the internet, smash that like button and subscribe because what happens next will leave you speechless. At exactly 2:23 p.m. on March 15th, Judge Judy was reviewing Helen Rodriguez's medical records, her famous scowl deepening as she read about the chemical burns and emergency room visit. The courtroom was packed with the usual audience of retirees and college students, C-SPAN cameras rolling live to millions of viewers across America. Karen Mitchell sat at the defendant's table, fidgeting with a small bottle of what looked like peppermint oil, completely misreading the room's energy. Judge Judy looked up from the medical files, her eyes narrowing as she prepared to address the severity of Karen's negligent health advice. That's when Karen made the biggest mistake of her entire MLM career. "Your Honor," Karen interrupted, her voice dripping with that condescending tone that every essential oil hun perfects during their first week of training. "You seem very stressed right now. Have you tried peppermint oil for anger management? I actually have some right here that could help you find your center and approach this case with more balanced energy." The silence that followed lasted exactly 4 seconds. But in those 4 seconds you could watch Judge Judy's face transform from professional annoyance to absolute nuclear fury. Her eyebrows shot up, her mouth fell open slightly, and then her expression hardened into something that looked like she was staring at the most audacious defendant in her 25-year career. "Security," Judge Judy said, her voice so cold it could have frozen the entire courtroom. That single word was spoken at exactly the 23-second mark, and it triggered a chain reaction that would destroy Karen's life in real time. But Karen, completely oblivious to the fact that she had just committed career suicide on live television, doubled down with the kind of MLM desperation that makes normal people physically uncomfortable. As 2 security guards approached her table, Karen started pulling essential oil bottles out of her purse like she was dealing cards at a casino. "Wait, Your Honor, let me show you my entire wellness line. I have frankincense for wisdom, lavender for peace, and this eucalyptus blend that could really help with your obviously elevated cortisol levels." The security guards grabbed Karen's arms at the 31-second mark, but she kept talking, her voice getting higher and more frantic as they lifted her out of her chair. "This is about Big Pharma trying to silence natural healers. You're missing an opportunity to heal your trauma with plant medicine." At exactly 36 seconds from her initial interruption, Karen Mitchell was completely removed from Judge Judy's courtroom, still clutching a bottle of tea tree oil and shouting about the healing properties of oregano. What happened in those 36 seconds would become the most viral Judge Judy clip of all time. Destroy Karen's MLM business forever. and turn her into the internet's favorite cautionary tale about when keeping it, MLM goes absolutely wrong. To understand why Karen Mitchell's 36-second meltdown was so catastrophically perfect, you need to know who these people really are, and why they were destined to clash like oil and water, except in this case the oil was literally what caused all the problems. Karen Mitchell wasn't just some random defendant who stumbled into Judge Judy's courtroom. She was a 3-year MLM veteran who had completely rebuilt her identity around essential oils, transforming from a struggling suburban mom into what she genuinely believed was a natural health guru, with the power to heal America one drop at a time. Karen had started her essential oil journey after her divorce when she was vulnerable, financially desperate, and looking for something that would give her life meaning and her bank account hope. What she found was a company called Pure Life Wellness that promised her both purpose and profit through the miraculous healing power of plant extracts. Over 3 years, Karen had invested every penny she could borrow into building her essential oil empire. She owed $47,000 to her neighbor Helen Rodriguez, money that was supposed to be a short-term business loan that Karen swore she'd pay back within 6 months once her wellness business took off. That was 2 years ago. Karen had convinced herself that she wasn't just selling oils. She was spreading healing and fighting against Big Pharma's stranglehold on American health. She genuinely believed that lavender could cure anxiety better than prescription medication, that peppermint oil was more effective than blood pressure pills, and that her special blend of frankincense and myrrh could literally prevent cancer. This wasn't just business confidence. This was complete delusion wrapped in the language of empowerment and natural living. Karen's social media feeds were filled with before and after testimonials, miracle healing stories, and constant posts about how she was helping people take control of their health naturally. She had developed that particular brand of MLM arrogance that comes from believing you've discovered secret knowledge that the rest of the world is too brainwashed to accept. In Karen's mind, doctors were either ignorant or corrupt. The FDA was bought and paid for by pharmaceutical companies, and anyone who questioned the healing power of essential oils was just another victim of the medical industrial complex. On the other side of this collision course sat Judge Judy Final, a 25-year veteran of television courtrooms who had literally seen every scam, con, and delusional defendant that America could produce. If Karen was a true believer in pseudoscience, Judge Judy was the ultimate skeptic, someone who had spent decades watching people destroy their lives and hurt others with get-rich-quick schemes and miracle cures. Judge Judy had seen MLM distributors before, dozens of them, and she knew exactly what Karen was the moment she walked through those courtroom doors. The overconfident posture, the rehearsed talking points, the complete inability to accept responsibility for the damage they'd caused. Judge Judy could spot an MLM Hun from across the courtroom. The case that brought them together was about more than just money, though the $47,000 debt was certainly significant. Helen Rodriguez, Karen's 67-year-old neighbor and former friend, had trusted Karen's medical advice about treating her arthritis naturally instead of continuing her prescription medications. Karen had convinced Helen that her special anti-inflammatory blend of wintergreen, peppermint, and eucalyptus oils would eliminate her joint pain without the side effects of traditional medicine. Helen had applied Karen's homemade remedy directly to her skin as instructed, but instead of relief, she experienced severe chemical burns, an allergic reaction that sent her to the emergency room, and complications that required 3 days of hospitalization. When Helen tried to hold Karen accountable, Karen's response was pure MLM deflection. She claimed Helen must have used the oils incorrectly, that her reaction proved her body was detoxing from years of pharmaceutical poisoning, and that Helen's negative energy was blocking the healing process. Karen never once considered that she might have given dangerous medical advice to a vulnerable elderly woman. Instead, she doubled down, insisting that Helen's hospitalization was actually a positive sign that the oils were working to cleanse her system. This wasn't just a business dispute or a case of good intentions gone wrong. This was a fundamental clash between someone who believed feelings and testimonials trumped science and evidence, and someone who had spent her entire career dealing with the real-world consequences of that kind of magical thinking. The warning signs that Karen Mitchell was headed for disaster started 3 weeks before she ever set foot in Judge Judy's courtroom, and they were broadcasting live on social media for anyone smart enough to recognize impending catastrophe. Karen's Facebook page became a masterclass in MLM delusion, as she posted daily updates about her upcoming court appearance, framing it not as a legal proceeding where she'd have to answer for putting someone in the hospital, but as her opportunity to educate America about natural healing and expose the corruption of the medical establishment on live television. Her posts read like manifestos written by someone who had completely lost touch with reality, but was convinced she was the sanest person in the room. Getting ready to school Judge Judy on real medicine tomorrow, Karen posted the night before her court date, complete with a selfie where she was holding up bottles of essential oils like they were trophies. Big Pharma doesn't want you to know that these little bottles contain more healing power than their poison pills. Time to wake up, America. The comments section was a mix of her MLM teammates cheering her on with oil drop emojis, and normal people trying to warn her that insulting a judge's intelligence on social media before your court appearance might not be the smartest legal strategy. Karen responded to every voice of reason with condescending lectures about natural healing and pharmaceutical conspiracies. What made Karen's social media meltdown even more telling was her complete inability to grasp what she was actually being sued for. She kept framing the case as persecution for her beliefs rather than accountability for her actions. She posted photos of Helen Rodriguez's medical bills with captions like, "This is what happens when people don't trust the process of natural detoxification, and some people would rather blame essential oils than admit they've been poisoned by years of prescription drugs." Karen genuinely seemed to believe that Helen's hospitalization was proof that the oils were working, not evidence that she had given dangerous medical advice to a vulnerable elderly woman. The morning of her court appearance, Karen made the catastrophic decision to bring actual essential oil samples to the courtroom. Despite being explicitly told by the court clerk that no promotional materials or products were allowed during proceedings, she packed her purse with her top-selling oils, planning to demonstrate their healing properties right there in front of the cameras, completely convinced that once people saw and smelled her products, they would understand the truth about natural medicine. Karen walked into that courtroom, carrying what she thought were healing tools, but what everyone else would soon recognize as evidence of her complete detachment from reality. From the moment Judge Judy started reading the case summary, Karen's behavior screamed trouble. While Judge Judy was reviewing Helen's medical records and hospitalization reports, Karen was frantically taking notes not about the legal proceedings, but about what appeared to be talking points for her planned essential oil presentation. She kept reaching into her purse to touch her oil bottles, like a security blanket or good luck charms, completely oblivious to the fact that Judge Judy was getting more irritated with every page she turned in the medical file. Judge Judy's eye rolls started early and often. When Helen Rodriguez testified about the chemical burns Karen's oil blend had caused, Judge Judy's expression went from professional interest to barely controlled disgust. When Helen described how Karen had insisted the burns were a positive sign of detoxification, Judge Judy actually shook her head in disbelief. But Karen, sitting there clutching her essential oil bottles and scribbling notes about pharmaceutical conspiracies, completely missed every single warning sign that she was about to face someone who had zero tolerance for pseudoscientific nonsense. The exact moment Judge Judy's patience reached its breaking point was when she looked up from Helen's emergency room photos and saw Karen smirking, actually smirking, like she was enjoying watching the evidence of someone else's suffering. Judge Judy's jaw tightened, her eyes narrowed, and anyone who had watched her show for more than 5 minutes would have recognized the expression that meant someone was about to get destroyed. But Karen, lost in her own world of essential oil evangelism and MLM delusion, was completely oblivious to the fact that she was sitting across from someone who was about to make her the most infamous defendant in daytime television history. What happened after Judge Judy called for security was a masterclass in how delusion can make someone completely blind to their own destruction. As the 2 guards approached Karen's table, she didn't panic or apologize like a normal person would. Instead, she went into full MLM presentation mode, treating her removal like an opportunity to pitch her products to a captive audience of millions. "Wait, Your Honor," Karen shouted, pulling bottles out of her purse like she was performing a magic trick. "Let me show you my entire wellness line. I have frankincense for wisdom, which you clearly need, lavender for peace, which this courtroom desperately lacks, and this eucalyptus blend that could really help with your obviously elevated cortisol levels." Judge Judy's response was legendary and became the most quoted line from the entire episode. "Get this snake oil saleswoman out of my courtroom before I hold her in contempt," she roared, her voice carrying the kind of authority that could stop traffic. But Karen wasn't done. As the security guards grabbed her arms and lifted her out of her chair, she started screaming about her natural healing rights and how this was exactly what Big Pharma wanted, silencing voices of truth and wellness. "This is medical persecution," she shrieked while being physically dragged toward the exit, still clutching her tea tree oil bottle. "You're violating my First Amendment right to educate people about plant medicine." The courtroom erupted in a way that rarely happened on Judge Judy's show. Helen Rodriguez sat there with her mouth hanging open, completely stunned that her former friend was having a public breakdown on national television. The audience members were a mix of shocked silence and barely suppressed laughter, with several people pulling out their phones despite the no recording policy. Even the camera operators seemed caught off guard, zooming in on Karen's oil bottles scattered on the defendant's table like evidence at a crime scene. After Karen was completely removed, Judge Judy spent the next 5 minutes delivering what would become known as her greatest anti-pseudoscience rant in 25 years of television. "I have been doing this for a quarter of a century," she began, her voice still shaking with fury. "And I have never seen such blatant disrespect for both this courtroom and basic human decency. That woman convinced a 67-year-old grandmother to stop taking her arthritis medication and replace it with oils that put her in the hospital. And then she had the audacity to come into my courtroom and try to sell me the same garbage that nearly killed her victim." Judge Judy ruled immediately in Helen's favor, awarding her the full $47,000, plus court costs and an additional $5,000 for emotional distress caused by Karen's courtroom behavior. If you're amazed by how Judge Judy completely dismantled this MLM nonsense, hit that subscribe button because we're just getting to the crazy part. Wait until you see what Karen posted on social media afterward. The internet destruction of Karen Mitchell began before she even made it to her car in the courthouse parking lot. Someone in the courtroom audience had live-streamed the entire meltdown on Instagram, and within 2 hours, the clip had 500,000 views and was spreading across every social media platform like wildfire. By the end of the first day, Essential Oils Karen was trending on Twitter with over 15 million video views, making it the most viral Judge Judy moment in the show's history. TikTok creators were already making reaction videos, with the most popular one being a 19-year-old college student who watched Karen's meltdown while applying actual peppermint oil to her temples and sarcastically asking if it was helping her understand the insanity she was witnessing. The MLM community's reaction was swift and brutal in its division. Karen's upline immediately released a statement distancing Pure Life Wellness from her behavior, claiming she had violated company policies and was no longer authorized to represent their products. Her entire downline team, the people who had been cheering her on just days before, suddenly went silent on social media or posted generic messages about not all wellness advocates being like Karen. The Essential Oils Facebook groups that had once celebrated Karen as a natural healing warrior were now deleting her posts and banning discussions of the court case to avoid association with the disaster. But Karen's response to her viral infamy was perhaps the most unhinged part of the entire saga. Instead of disappearing from social media or apologizing, she doubled down with a vengeance, posting 47 separate videos over the next 48 hours defending essential oils and claiming that Judge Judy's reaction proved she was over the target. Her Instagram stories became a manic stream of consciousness about pharmaceutical conspiracies, natural healing persecution, and her plans to appeal the case all the way to the Supreme Court if necessary. Each video showed Karen looking more disheveled and desperate, surrounded by hundreds of essential oil bottles like a mad scientist in a very expensive laboratory. 6 months after Karen Mitchell's 36-second destruction on Judge Judy, the aftermath had settled into a cautionary tale that perfectly illustrated the difference between confidence and competence. Karen's current status read like a masterclass in how viral infamy can destroy a life built on delusion. She had been banned from 3 separate MLM companies, not just Pure Life Wellness but also 2 others that refused to let her join after her courtroom meltdown became internet legend. Her legal debt had ballooned to $73,000 between the judgment Helen Rodriguez won against her, court costs, and the lawyer fees she racked up trying to appeal a case she had no chance of winning. Karen's attempts to reinvent herself as an independent natural healing consultant failed spectacularly because her viral video followed her everywhere. Potential clients would Google her name and immediately find the Judge Judy clip, complete with millions of comments mocking her essential oil intervention and courtroom breakdown. She tried launching a YouTube channel called Truth About Natural Healing, but her comment sections became graveyards of Judge Judy memes and clips of security dragging her out of court. Even her attempts to rebrand under different business names failed because the internet never forgets, and Karen Mitchell's face was permanently associated with essential oil delusion. Judge Judy herself addressed the Karen Mitchell case in a rare interview with CBS News about pseudoscience in her courtroom. "In 25 years, I've seen people try to sell me everything from miracle weight loss pills to psychic readings," Judge Judy said. But Karen Mitchell represented something more dangerous because she genuinely believed her own nonsense. She wasn't just a con artist trying to make money. She was a true believer who nearly killed someone with her ignorance and then had the audacity to try to convert me to her delusions while being removed from my courtroom. The case became a rallying point in discussions about MLM regulation and the need for stricter controls on health claims made by essential oil distributors. The Federal Trade Commission referenced Karen's case in new guidelines about medical claims in MLM marketing, specifically citing the danger of untrained distributors giving medical advice to vulnerable populations. Helen Rodriguez became an advocate for elderly people who had been targeted by MLM health claims, using her experience with Karen as an example of how these schemes prey on people's desperation and trust. Karen's final social media post came 4 months after the court case, a rambling 2,000-word Facebook note titled "My Truth About What Really Happened." In it, she finally admitted that maybe, possibly, she had made some mistakes in how she handled the situation, though she still insisted that essential oils had healing properties and that Judge Judy had been unfair to her. The post received exactly 12 likes, all from family members, and marked the end of Karen Mitchell's career as a natural healing influencer. The real lesson of Karen Mitchell's story isn't about essential oils or MLMs specifically. It's about what happens when confidence becomes completely divorced from competence. Karen walked into that courtroom so sure of her own righteousness that she couldn't see how ridiculous and dangerous her behavior was. She had surrounded herself with an echo chamber of MLM cheerleaders and natural healing believers for so long that she lost all ability to recognize when she was wrong. This moment perfectly captures the MLM delusion problem, where people become so invested in their identity as wellness warriors or business entrepreneurs that they can't admit when their methods are hurting people or when their knowledge is insufficient for the advice they're giving. If this story showed you why essential oils can't cure stupid, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible courtroom meltdowns. And let me know in the comments, what was your favorite moment from Karen's 36-second destruction? Was it her trying to diagnose Judge Judy's stress levels, the moment security was called, or her desperate MLM pitch while being dragged out? Drop your thoughts below and I'll see you in the next video where we break down even more shocking courtroom moments that went viral for all the wrong reasons.